So Terry got a little old school with us today with some of the music. Some of you know, been listening to contemporary praise music. Some of those pieces go back a bit. It's nice to hear those come back occasionally. We are going to go a bit old school in our readings today from the New Testament because, once again, this is like the third week. You're going to get tired of me saying this. It's a passage of Scripture you've heard so many times. I guarantee that you can recite it almost word for word, which is the caution, right? It's great to memorize Scripture. It's great to understand it. But it's more than that. It's letting it speak brand new today. So let's let it do that. If you open up your New Testaments to the Gospel of Matthew, the very end of Matthew, we're going to be looking at chapter 26 and just a few verses, 26 through 30. We're going to stop right there at 30. Listen to the Word of God. Familiar words. We've heard it before, but almost as I'm saying this, you might just say, Lord, let this be brand new to my ears today. While they were eating, Jesus took a loaf of bread, and after blessing it, he broke it, and he gave it to the disciples, and he said, take and eat. This is my body. Then he took a cup, and after giving thanks, he gave it to them, saying, drink from it, all of you, for this is my blood of the covenant, which is poured out for many for the forgiveness of sins. I tell you, I will never drink again of this fruit of the vine until that day when I drink it new with you in my Father's kingdom. Verse 30. When they had sung the hymn, they went out to the Mount of Olives. May God bless the reading and the hearing of God's holy word. It's very interesting when we read these accounts of Jesus' institution of, well, it was a Passover kind of meal, but he's instituting something new, and we know it by lots of names. What do we know this passage is referring to a particular meal? What are some of the names we know it by? Last Supper. Communion. Sin boldly, yell it out. Eucharist, if you from the Episcopal or Catholic persuasion, and we also know it as the most famous words we title by which it goes is communion, which we celebrate today. We're coming to the table of the Lord, and as we hear those words, which demonstrate the breaking of the bread, the sharing of the cup, this meal that we refer to as communion. It has many different themes, and so we celebrate once a month in this church. Some churches, every time they worship. As a matter of fact, Calvin, who's one of the fathers of the Reformed tradition, the Presbyterian tradition, he said every time you worship, you ought to have communion. So you can take that up with the pastor why you don't have it more often. I'd like to have it more often. So we celebrate once a month. Once a month you hear the words. Once a month either Jody or I get up and begin to talk to you about these passages as an invitation, a contextual sort of drawing in to this table. However, I want to connect to one theme that I think gets pushed aside. You know me, I always like to take the different angle at these texts, especially the more familiar ones. So one angle that seems to get pushed aside when we come to this meal, we all know the words, right? On the night of his arrest, Jesus gathered together with his disciples. You know how the rest of the story, I read you one of the accounts out of Matthew today. When we hear those words, and each time we celebrate the sacrament, we're getting prepared, we're coming to the table, right? But I want us to take a closer look at what happens not only during the meal, we're going to talk a little bit about that, but today I really want to focus on what happens after the meal takes place. So you with me? Great, here we go. Listen to Matthew 26:30 once again, just that very last verse that I just read to you. And it says this again, they sang a hymn together. We just did that, lovely. We sang a hymn together and they went out to the Mount of Olives. Have you ever noticed that in each of the gospel renderings of the institution of the Last Supper, the Lord's Supper, the Holy Eucharist, communion, however you want to think of it. You can find it in Mark 14, you can find it in Luke 22, you can find it in John 13, and of course, I read you the version that's out of Matthew 26. If you ever read all of those, and believe me, I did this week, I went through and did our parallel study of all of those accounts of the Last Supper, and every one of them ends the same way. Do you know what it is? They went out. They went out. Interesting. Now, I referred to Super Bowl today, and I know people have their favorite Super Bowl foods, and mine is kind of this cheesy thing dip I make. So Rachel's back there. I'm not making it today, Rachel, by the way. I'm sleeping tonight, so just so you know, those. Anyway, we're moving on. So I love Super Bowl foods. That's great. That's wonderful. But the thing that Elise and I really, really like is discovering new places to eat. And if you've ever taken the Alpha course, has anyone ever taken the Alpha course and been in one of my groups? Okay, you know the question that I'm going to ask. One of the very first questions is, tell me the name of your favorite restaurant, right? Because I love to learn about new food places, specifically places that make great hamburgers. I love really, really good hamburgers. And when people start talking about their favorite restaurants and they start describing the foods and the aromas, and if I started talking about that cheese, that Velveeta cheese melting down with all of that picante sauce and those chips, and you see Rachel's back there, yeah, do it, Dad, do it. You're cooking it this year. Doesn't it start to get your food your tummy just going a little bit? I'm like, how many are going to have some favorite food today? Super Bowl party. David Beck's going, no, not me. Okay, so some of you will. You getting hungry yet? I mean, just thinking about it. So, but the queso dip's great, but what I really, really, really like, and what Elisa and I really, really, really like, as I said, is a really good, high-quality hamburger, and they're harder to find than you can think. We have traveled all over the United States in search of our quest for the perfect hamburger. And I found just a couple. One of our favorites, not here in Florida, is out in Jackson Hole, Wyoming. Anybody ever been there? It's called Billy's. Anybody been to Billy's? If you want the greatest hamburger in the world, just get on a plane. It won't cost you much, a couple $1,000, and you go to Billy's. You can't eat it by yourself. So there's two more here locally. If you want to know, I'll be giving a class on quality hamburgers later, and I'll tell you how to get to the other two places in Central Florida that we think make the cut. However, Billy's and the other two are not the only ones that are on this search or trying to solve, people like me, searching for this great hamburger, this Angus queso quest that we are on for the perfect cheeseburger. So for author Jeff Rose, he wrote a little article called The Search for the Perfect Hamburger. It led him to a West Coast born and raised chain called, you ready for it? In-N-Out. Not many people know that, right? You're gonna be an expert on In-N-Out. It's a little further than Billy's. You have to go to another state, but that's another thing. So the In-N-Out chain, the In-N-Out burger, he says, quote, I'm like a dog when I hear food talk. My mouth just starts to water. And so when I read about a new hamburger called the Flying Dutchman or Monkey Style or the 4x4, he says, I've got to know a little bit more. So other than Kurt, most of you probably have never heard about the In-N-Out burger. In 2017, get this, their revenue was $575 million. And although it's hard to find them, this is mostly a West Coast thing, there are 342 locations, and the president of In-N-Out Burger is the youngest female billionaire in the United States. Her name is, I'll find it here in a second, Lindsay Snyder, America's youngest female billionaire. So what's the secret? If you'd like to be a billionaire, if you're taking notes, you're in school, what do you do to become the youngest female billionaire, or maybe you want to be the youngest male billionaire? What's the secret to In-N-Out Burger? Here's the deal. In-N-Out Burger is basically a kitchen with two driveways on either side. That's it. It's got two takeout. You're in and out, right? They're just cooking food, giving it, passing out. You order, you get it, you go out, hence the name in and out. Come on, you're okay, great. So I know, and I'm not trying to make light of the fact that we're coming to this table today. I know Jesus didn't have the In-N-Out burger in his mind when he called us to observe and share this table, this communion. However, when I think about this In-N-Out design that was so successful, I think it becomes for us today, 2019, a useful metaphor and a fuller understanding of what it means when we come to this table. So I said that communion is referenced, it's not only in the four Gospels, it's also referenced in many other places in the New Testament. So I want to see another New Testament reference as we begin to discover what this whole idea about coming in and moving out means. What it means to receive the body and the blood of Christ. This is out of Hebrews chapter 10, verses 19 to 25. Okay, it's going to be on the screen. Therefore, my friends, since we have confidence to enter the sanctuary by the blood of Jesus, by the new and living way that he opened for us through the curtain, that is, through his flesh. There's the body and the blood. And since we have a great priest over the house of God, let us approach with a true and clean from an evil conscience. Let me read that again because I think I put two verses together. Let us approach with a true heart in full assurance of faith, with our hearts sprinkled clean from an evil conscience, and our bodies washed with pure water. Let us hold fast to the confession of our hope without wavering. For he who has promised is faithful. And let us consider how to provoke, we've heard this verse before, stir up one another to love and do good deeds. So when I look at this other reference, this is not exactly the words of institution, but in the passage you're hearing describe this act of communion, this act of body, this act of blood, an act of cleansing, how it makes us clean and makes us free. The first move in the passage is an inward move. It says, draw near to God with a, if you read the passage, true heart. It's calling us in. Come into the sanctuary with a true heart, full of assurance with faith. We're being made clean, sprinkled clean from evil, and our bodies washed. Our bodies washed. So, that's the first move. It's a call into the table. We get that. We do it all the time. We don't even think about it. I'm going to invite you up to this table as I do, or Jody does, often. You'll just come. But we don't always think about the extra part, what's added to this meal. So the second move is an outward move. First move, inward, come to the table. Second move, outward. Look at verse 24. And let us consider how to provoke one another to love and to do good deeds. So the meal calls us in, but it's not just to fill our tummies. It's not only to represent cleansing and purity and a clean consciousness. It's also cleansed for a purpose, a service of love, which by definition is a way, right? It's not about loving yourself. It's about loving others, doing good for others. So when you think of, in just a few moments, when we think of coming to this table and to receiving this meal, we also know, I know we don't always put it together, but this meal's not limited to an upper room, right? We always associate this with an upper room. But if you look at other accounts, Jesus breaks bread not in the upper room. And we're going to see that in just a second. So we come in, we move out. Actions out into the world, good works, not for ourselves. That's doing something for yourself isn't considered a good work. It's when you're doing it for others. That's what makes them good, when we reach to another human heart. Why? Why am I saying this? Why am I showing you this kind of in and out dynamic in the meal? Because Jesus calls us to understand that movement. One of the other accounts, remember I said there are a lot of accounts. There's another account in John 18 of Jesus. It's not in an upper room, but he is breaking bread. And you'll remember the story when I begin to tell you. Jesus has died. He's resurrected. There's been some sightings of him, post-resurrection sightings. But you remember that Peter goes out in the boat and he's fishing. They catch nothing all day. All of a sudden they see this figure on the beach and it's kind of directing them what to do, how to cast the net. So they come ashore and there's a little fire there. with some fish, Anybody having fish tonight? A little charcoal fire with the fish cooking? And Peter gets it. It's with the fish and the bread that Peter begins to realize who Jesus is. He moves into the meal. Here's the part I want you to pay attention to, the last part. This is John 18, 15 through 17, just a couple of verses. When they had finished breakfast, this is Jesus and Peter. Jesus said to Simon Peter, you know this passage also, Simon, son of John, do you love me more than these? He said to him, yes, Lord, you know that I love you. And Jesus said, well, then feed my lambs. A second time, he said to him, Simon, son of John, do you love me more? Do you love me? Or just plain, do you love me? He said to him, yes, Lord, you know that I love you. Jesus said to him, then tend my sheep. Last question. He said to him the third time, Simon, son of John, do you love me? And Peter felt hurt because he said to him the third time, do you love me? And he said to him, Lord, you know everything. You know that I love you. And Jesus' response is, you know it well, feed my sheep. He encounters the risen Christ. It meant a couple of things. Good fishing. But it literally meant to feed. To feed. It's not always a movement into the table. It's important, but that limits what the table is about. It's also the movement out to feed Jesus' sheep. So he's inviting you to now move. The Spirit's moving in this place and is pushing on our hearts, and the invitation is come and receive. But then as the meal is concluded and you feel that presence of God, when you've tasted and seen that the Lord is good, he's commissioning us to move out, away from this table, because that's where you'll feed his sheep. We are called in and sent out to feed. Hence the title of the message, In and Out. Would you join me in prayer?